thank you so much for joining us. For everyone that just watched the film, this is writer, director, producer Julie Schroell. And let's jump into a discussion of River Tales, Luxembourg's official entry for this year's Academy Awards. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Very exciting.
This is a piece of, I guess, of geopolitical history that I had never really come across. You know, and I've spent a lot of time in Latin America, but I didn't really know about the history of this part of Nicaragua and its sort of its relevance to international trade and all of the various things that are sort of documented along the river's history. Tell me about how you came across this topic to start with.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's funny that you say that, though. It's important that also for people in the USA, it's not a very known subject or not really a subject that is covered a lot by the media also probably. And yes, so I came along with a subject in 2015. I was in Central America at that point. At that point, I was there for traveling, and I got to know that because when I was there, that was a big topic that they want to build a big inter-oceanic canal, the biggest infrastructure project of all time, built by a Chinese billionaire from the telecommunication business, and that they were on the point, or they already had signed a concession with the Nicaraguan government to build this canal, and not only build a canal, but build a lot of sub-projects to the canal, the infrastructure projects, port, 2 big ports on both sides of the country, touristic areas, agricultural projects. So touristic project, a huge project. You can find it online. It's hundreds of pages, and there were feasibility studies being made at that time. So it seemed like really serious and yeah, completely crazy, because you have the Nicaragua Lake, which is the biggest sweetwater source of the area, and from the lake flow, it's the source of Rio San Juan, the San Juan River, where we shoot the film, and so this aquatic route is a very important also environmental ecosystem. And if you build a canal there, of course, it's very dangerous also for the ecosystem and the lake, destruction of the lake. So all that was being talked about. So you had already anti-canal movement, and you had a lot of pro-canal opinions, and the government was doing a lot of publicity. It was on the radio, it was on TV, every day on the buses you had publicity and everything. And then, okay, I thought this is, so when I was there, I visited people that were living in the called canal route, which is a corridor of so many kilometers left and right from the actual canal, and everything that was in this area was supposed to be destroyed and the people expelled, etc. So it was like people were really scared. So I was in the midst of this, and I have a background as a historian and a strong interest in Latin America. I was working there before, so I thought, oh, okay, this is something I should work on. And then I started doing so, and yeah, as I went deeper into the subject, so I was back in Europe, and I went to the library and I actually noticed that, okay, this is not the first time that we speak about canal in Nicaragua, but there were more than 70 canal projects. And since centuries, it was a project because before the Panama Canal, they were people, the different powers of the world were trying to find the best route. And Panama Canal was one route. There were several routes in Nicaragua, up to Mexico, actually, all the whole geographical, the isthmus of Central America is, because of its geographical place, was got this geopolitical importance. And yeah, so this is an old project that have never happened, never was built. And it's actually an old phantasm. It became a myth. And I got more and more interested in this aspect of the canal, because also the time that passed, you suddenly saw it was not in the media anymore. Nobody was talking about it. The feasibility studies came out, but it was not really official. You had this, the Chinese billionaire lost a lot of money. He was not really into it was not a big theme anymore. But this concession was still alive and is still alive today. So it's a big problem, even if the canal is not built. All these sub-projects belong to this Chinese company. And then I got more and more interested in this, in this myth, and what does it mean for the people there, and how do they deal with this idea that every government tries to bring hope or bring solution of economic development with the canal, and again and again and again. So I digged into that part of the project, and I was interested in, how do people in Nicaragua know about it? How do they know about all this history that I had the chance to read in a library in Berlin? But what happens with people on San Juan River that don't have access to all these education, culture, libraries, etc. And that, I realized more and more that that was the fact, that people there don't have this knowledge. And so I really, from this, let's say, bigger picture of the canal and the story, I tried to find the micro approach for the documentaries, also something that is attaching and original, and a way to tell the story. And I went back to Nicaragua to research, to field trip, and I discovered this Rio San Juan, which is such a spectacular place, because it's surrounded by Indio maize, natural reserve. You have so much history in this river, because even before this canal ideas came up, you have a natural transit route because of the connection of this lake that I was talking about and the river. And you only have 5 kilometers of land on the west. So people used already this way in the past as a transit route. So I got to know about this and about all this, the Spanish conquerors that were the chiefs of the river, and then they built all these forts, and then came the British that tried to take away some of the land of the Spanish, and the pirates and the Spanish were fighting in the river. Later came the Americans, and for example, Vanderbilt, this American engineer that used this travel route for the gold diggers that wanted to go to California. And so you have all this fascinating story, very very fairy tale kind of stories and pirates and everything, and you have ruins, you have traces of this. because if they were not there, you wouldn't think, because it's a region, nothing is happening there today. It's abundant, it's super poor, people struggle. They emigrate when they can, they go work. It's on the Costa Rican border, so people work in Costa Rica in agriculture to make ends meet, come back, work in the coffee plantation, and yeah, and then you have these little traces of this big history. And I thought, okay, this is something I really want to tell. So this contrast actually of this history, these big infrastructure projects, gold diggers, the people, the rich people's story, and compared to these local kids and that don't even know about it if you don't go there and tell the story. So that was a bit made short the way from the global picture to the film that finally you saw now.
How did you actually how did you actually meet the protagonists of the film? Because I mean, okay, so everything that you just mentioned really did start to kind of hone in on a very specific geographic area, right? Where you could have this amazing juxtaposition of contemporary life, natural life, and the historical ruins. But of course, then you have to actually make contact with someone, and I'm curious to know what your approach was and how you wound up finding the people that you were going to follow.
Mm-hmm. So that was all was a long process. So I started in 2015. Quite fast, I got in touch with a local production company. There are not so many, so it was quite easy to find. I was there on a field trip quite alone, and I was looking for contacts, and I found them in the internet. And they actually became a very important partner. And they were the line producer in the film, Florence Roger and Frank Pineda, who was the cinematographer of the film. And they became a really important partner for the making of the film. And they also introduced me to Yemn, who is the teacher and the main protagonist. That happened quite early in the process of the film, when I was not at all, I was not sure about filming in El Castillo, filming with the children. And when I was getting more interested in the unmaterialistic part of the story of the canal, and art and culture, and how people deal with this subject in these levels, I started meeting some artists, some writers, poets, and Yemn he always came back in my mind, because he is, so I met him in Managua, in the capital, where he lived at that moment, and he's from Rio San Juan, and from Castillo. He was born there, he grew up there, and then he went to university in the capital and stayed there, and is university teacher and anthropologist and doing theater. And he regularly goes back into this region to do this theater workshop with children, and also do other social projects in rural areas with theater, with art. So actually it was very close to, after having met a lot of other people, you always come back to the beginning, you know? You also have to do this process to know what you're really looking for. And so I kept in touch with Yemn, and yeah, and we talked about, another aspect was that I really wanted to, the more I learned about the canal and the story of Rio San Juan, the more I noticed that the people in this area don't know this story. So I thought, instead of going there, doing a film, going back to Europe, taking the film with me, and that's it, do something there. And I work a lot, I work with film, but I also work with theater and installation, other media. And I thought, oh, okay, let's include the local population And then we started discussing, writing a piece about theater piece for the kids of Yemm's workshop about San Juan River.
So you were actually like a part of that process.
Yes, yes.
Not just documenting it, but actually creating with them. That's fascinating.
No, so we did this project together. So Yemn, he works there. He does a lot of. He had done several workshops before, but this piece about the river, we did it together, for the film at first, but then it actually became a project apart. So that was 2016, 2017. Over a few months, we were in El Castillo, in the fortress, in this library that you see in the film, and we were doing the rehearsals there, and putting up the theater piece. So yeah, I really had the two. In French, we say double casquette, the two hats, and which was sometimes a bit difficult to manage logistically. But so we did this, and then at the end of the rehearsals, the film crew came and the film started. And we filmed the last week of rehearsals and a little bit more.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how it happened.
How did the kids feel about the presence of the cameras in the middle of this very sort of, I mean, they're kids, so there's a decent amount of just sort of outgoingness there, but you're coming into a creative process for them. I mean, obviously you're already there, but then having the cameras, did that change the dynamic at all?
I think it was quite easy. I didn't expect that. The camera was forgotten quite fast. I think it has to do with the fact that I was also already filming when I was there before the crew came. So they were used to my camera. And also we spent so much time there, or I spent so much time there, and then with Yemn, that they really got used to us. And they became like real actors also. They really adapted so easily to the camera. And also the crew, we were a small crew. The cameraman, Frank Pineda, who has a lot of experience and is a brilliant cameraman and very decent, how do you say, very discreet or discreet, you say that? Yeah, person who can immerse himself also in the surrounding without being too much present. And I don't know, maybe it has also, it's something cultural also, because I don't think filming in Europe or in the United States would be the same. But I don't know if it's because they are not so used to cameras all the time, or if it's also something cultural. I'm not really sure, because, for example, I had a shooting in India, and it's impossible to be the fly on the wall. Probably it's possible if you take the time, etc. But people have such a different approach to the camera, and as soon as there is a camera, everyone is in front of it, and I didn't really experience that in Nicaragua. But yeah, it was a long process, and I was basically living in the village for so many months before the shooting, and so in the end, the camera was forgotten.
Well, tell us about also the scenes with Yemm's mother, because tell us about building that relationship, because it's one thing to have, the arts teacher protagonist. It's another thing to go into a very domestic space and, presumably, having a European filmmaker come into a local space like that could be a complicated thing in terms of trust issues, in terms of forgetting about the camera. So was that particularly challenging? What sort of relationship evolved?
Yeah, of course, you had at some point or in the beginning, people had questions about trust, and also it's a particular place because Nicaragua is so democracy is a big issue there. It's not really functioning, and so everyone is also very afraid to not to do too much if it's a project that is critical against the official view of things. And also doing a film about in the beginning when the topic was more openly political and the canal and etc. That was very difficult. Also the first field trips, that was quite risky because many other journalists or filmmakers were expelled and they got their cameras taken away while reporting about the canal. And so people were also careful. Then when I was in El Castillo working with the children, it was also different because the film was, the topic was not openly political, and people were super happy that someone comes and works with the children. So I also got a lot of acceptance and invitations because they were, yeah, also grateful that somebody takes interest in them and their life and their history. So that, I think that was an important aspect, the work with the children, the pedagogical work. And then with the family, Yemm's family was very open to me from the beginning because Yem introduced me, and Yem's dad, who is not really part of the film, he is because he's our boat driver. He is like a boat taxi. And he also became the cruise transportation chauffeur, actually, with his boat. And the boat you also see in the film with the kids. And when they go swimming, you see him also taking the kids there. So he was with the crew all the time. And Yem's mom is a very special person also in the context of Nicaraguan politics and contemporary situation, because she's very open-minded. She's a teacher in El Castillo. She's very open-minded, and she's also critical against the government. So she has a lot of problems because of that now. And she's very also feministic, and these valors she transmitted a lot to Yem, because Yem is, for a man in Nicaragua, he's like an alien, you know. He's so progressive in his thinking. He's super feminist. He's not so religious. He's super open-minded and cultivated, and that is a lot what he got from his mom. So I thought also filming this relation was important to know a little bit where he comes from. And also it was kind of that was completely coincidence, that because they talk about the political situation and that nobody is interested in politics anymore in Nicaragua, and the past with the revolution, and what it came after that, what the country became after that. So all these are like really, it's not the topic of the film, it's like a side, it's the context, and it was very important also to integrate this, and the talk between Yem and his mom made it possible. And it was a coincidence that just a few months after this talk, there was a big political unrest in the country that still goes on today. That was in April 2018, when students started protesting, and the revolt was going on, and including more people, and with and this Pacific protest was yeah, the government struck back with a repression, and there are a lot of people in prison and tortured, and around 100,000 or more had to flee the country, and also Yemn is one of them. And at that point, we didn't think, because I was also, we had this discussion, how come that in a country where you had the revolution in 79 and the Contra war in the 80s, and people didn't seem so politicized to me, or, well, it's also maybe more like a generational thing everywhere in the world. But actually it was not true, because it was more undermined, or in people's heads, it was already there.
I'm curious, because you said that the government would create great difficulties for people trying to film and tell stories that might have a political component to it. Did you experience anything specific where the government shut down something that you thought was necessary to tell this story? Was there anything that you couldn't film?
Yeah, I mean, the first question you were asking, and the development of the project was also a bit because I couldn't make a film about the canal in itself. Maybe I could, but it would have been very dangerous and difficult, and so many people got arrested. So I think it was only possible because we were prepared very well. The cooperation with Camila Films, Frank Pineda, the cinematographer and the co-owner of Camila Films, he has a special position in Nicaragua because he filmed, he's kind of a hero, not a hero, but he was active during the revolution. He did a lot for the Sandinista revolution, filming all the campaigns at that point. And he has a kind of a special status that allowed us also to go on in the shooting. If we had been alone from Europe with a crew, it would have been impossible. Because also the San Juan region, as it is on the border with Costa Rica, is very, there's a lot of military everywhere. So everywhere we went, the military stopped us. We had to show the permits and things like this that you don't get like this, like in the official way. So it's only because of them and them and them, and this colonel Frank knew this. We got we could pass. So that was also something I didn't know and didn't really think about when I started the project. That there would be a lot of obstacles. And also now I haven't returned since the film is finished, and I couldn't show it in El Castillo, and that's a big pity.
Why couldn't you show it? Because you haven't been back, or because?
Yeah, because you never know, and it's the situation in Nicaragua is so difficult now, and it is possible that the film is considered too political or too critical, and it's unpredictable, and it can be that people it's not, in order not to put the families in danger, because you never know what happens. And Yemn, the teacher, who is political refugee, is not there to help me to get there or get the film there, because he's not living there anymore.
Where did he move?
So sorry?
Is he still in Nicaragua, or did he leave?
No, he had to leave the country because he is part of a opposition party, and he got death threats, and that was in 2018, and he had to flee like many. So actually people shut down, the government shut down the NGOs, media outlets, journalists. It's really close to a dictatorship now, and there's only one direction, one media, everything from the government. And yeah, so all the contacts, also the people from the NGO on the river that we worked with got shut down, so that would also have been access. So we have to wait, and next year is the elections, or this year is the elections in Nicaragua, and so the atmosphere is even more tense. So we have to wait until we show the film there, unfortunately.
I mean, there is a certain visibility to being the official Oscar entry, for the Academy Awards. Is there, I mean, just in and of itself being one of the Oscar submissions, is there a fear that the film will get into the wrong hands, so to speak?
Yeah, of course, sometimes I have these thoughts, but I mean, in the same time, I think it can be also the other way around, that they are very proud that the film about Nicaragua is being in the Oscars. So it's really hard to say. I don't want to be paranoid, and yeah, I think it's very much possible that nobody cares. Nobody cares about this film. Is there, and we'll be fine. But I didn't want to provoke something outside, and they do things like, it's like in the former RDA or things like this. So someone who collaborated in this project, or they cut the electricity, and it's small things like this, or the teacher who has. It's so about the math. Who is telling about whom to whom, who has the contact. So you have to be a little bit careful.
Well, I'm sorry that we don't have audience questions, but I'm sure that we'll get plenty emailed to me. So maybe I'll send over a selection of the things that were on the minds of everyone that stayed to watch the film.
Yeah, that would be nice. You can forward them, and I try to answer.
Yeah, well, good luck with the submission, and obviously best wishes for the ongoing global health crisis.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the turbulent geopolitical changes that are underway right now as we're speaking.
Big moment.
Yes, it's been waiting for so long. It feels like it was never going to end. So on that happy note, as I just disenfranchised, I don't know what percentage of the audience. Thank you so much for joining us, and best wishes for the film. And hopefully at some point you'll get to come and visit us on campus.
Yeah, that would be so nice. Thank you very much, and good luck to you too, and enjoy the new era.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.